What's up, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the NBA Fantasy Mafia podcast. My name is Jordan Jaika, aka Dr. Fantasy, and I am here with my co-host, the Fantasy Caveman, and we are starting a new mini-series today where we are going to give a brief preview of every single NBA team heading into the off-season. So we'll go into a season recap from the 2019-20 season, the shortened season for some of these organizations. Then we'll go over their current depth chart, some leaders from the year, any upcoming free agents, off-season needs, targets in free agency, and the draft. So today we are discussing the Golden State Warriors. So to kick it off, I will give you a 2019-2020 season recap. The Warriors were the worst team in the NBA this season with a 15-50 record. Their head coach currently is Steve Kerr, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. And as everybody's aware, Klay Thompson was out for the season with an ACL injury. Steph Curry only played 5 games for him. He did end up returning, averaged a little over 20 points a game, but a lot of injuries. So, a tough season for him, but it's going to result in a nice draft pick. So they also acquired Andrew Wiggins, who averaged 19.5 points approximately in 12 games played for him. But besides that, Steph Curry and Andrew Wiggins led the team in points technically, but they didn't play very many games this season. So technically, Alec Burks led the team in points this year, had 16.1 points per game in 48 games played. After that, Eric Pascal had 14 points per game. Glenn Robinson was third at 12.9, and then Damian Lee with 12.7 points. So some different Warriors names there. They had 3 guys tied for the team lead in rebounds: Draymond Green, Marquise Chris, and Willie Cauley-Stein with 6.2 rebounds. And then Draymond also led the team in assists and steals with 6.2 steals and almost 6.2 assists, sorry. And almost 1.5. I was like, holy cow, that's a ton of steals.
That would be impressive.
Why didn't we talk about him for our Defensive Player of the Year? Holy cow. But yeah, 1.5 steals, 6.2 assists. Willie Cauley-Stein led the team in blocks with 1.2. So, K-Man, what notes do you have on the 2019-2020 season?
Oh yeah, like you said, I think the biggest thing for the Warriors this season was just injuries got them. I mean, they knew Klay Thompson was gonna miss the year, but I think if Curry would have been healthy this season, like if he wouldn't have gotten hurt, it'd be hard to imagine the Warriors not at least sneaking into the playoffs, even without Klay. But Curry went down. You kind of knew that it was over for him at that point already. So it was a very interesting season, I would say, because their fans recently have been spoiled with like blowout on top of blowout.
Yeah.
And then to see them this season, struggle and being on the other end of those blowouts most of the time, that had to have been a unique experience for them. The important thing to note here, however, is that with the Warriors, with them struggling so much, they were able to play a lot of guys. They were able to rotate in a bunch of guys who they can now see who's going to fit into their roster next season when they got all these guys back. They get Curry back healthy and Thompson's back and Wiggins and a top pick in the draft. One of these guys that I was really impressed with this season was that Eric Pascal, who you mentioned, who was among the team leaders in a couple different categories. What was impressive about him this season is that on the rare chance that the Warriors did have the winning game, which wasn't very often, obviously, I noticed the ball was in his hands a lot. In most of those situations, the offense kind of ran through him late in the game, which is kind of, even though the team wasn't that good, it's still kind of impressive for such a young guy to have that, focus on him. So yeah, like I said, the bad season. We'll get into this a little bit later on what we think is going to happen next year, but fully expect them to bounce back. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, Eric Pascal is an interesting name, and yeah, I agree that the reason that this team is so dangerous in the future is guys like Pascal, even Kai Bowman,
Hmm.
Damian Lee, some of the other guys I mentioned among their team leaders this year. I mean, these are guys that if they were fully healthy, they probably wouldn't have played at
Yep.
all. So, now these guys, once they are fully healthy, they're going to have a top 3 draft pick.
Hmm.
These guys are role bench players that know how to start, and I won't say win games, but they know how to start and play minutes. And they
Yep.
played high quality minutes. So,
Yep.
yeah, I mean, I think that's really dangerous. We haven't really seen, well, we saw previously when they had Andre Iguodala, and the
Hmm.
Warriors used to have some depth. But as they've acquired these big names, their depth has kind of gone away. But now these players are perfect depth guys. They'll probably go about 10 or so deep next year, right around there. So that's really dangerous. So that's a nice segue. The next topic of discussion is just a quick roster recap. So I want to go through their current depth chart and what it
Hmm.
looks like. So right now at point guard, they have Steph Curry starting. I already mentioned Kai Bowman and Jordan Poole came off the bench, 2 young guys that really improved throughout the season. At the 2 guard, they're going to have Klay Thompson, Damian Lee, who showed a nice ability to score, and Michael Mulder. So he's a guy they called up from the G League. And
Hmm.
same thing, he showed an ability to score, and he's going to be a nice young bench piece for them. At the 3, they have Andrew Wiggins, Eric Pascal, Mulder, Toscano Anderson. Mulder and Toscano Anderson, 2 guys that started off in the G League for him. Kind of interesting. They really liked what they saw from him. They started off with 10-day contracts and actually signed both of them
Hmm.
to multi-year deals. So that's kind of they really liked what they saw there. So that's an interesting dynamic there. At the 4, they have Draymond Green, Eric Pascal listed as the backup. Last season, they had Dragon Bender, who was a top pick a few years ago and has
Hmm.
really fallen off. But they actually released him already. They also have Kevon Looney, who struggled with injuries, but he was expected to be a big piece of the
Yeah.
future of this Warriors team, and he was injured most of the season, so we'll see what he has in store for him. At the center, they had Chris starting. They also had Bender last season, Kevon Looney. And one of the interesting things, I'll kind of tie this in with the upcoming free agents because, interestingly enough, you and I were talking about this before. They have no free agents. They're the only team in the entire NBA that has no free agents this upcoming offseason. Dragon Bender was going to be a free agent, but they released him early. So technically, they don't have any free agents. So all 13 players that they have on the roster are currently under contract. So what notes do you have about the starting lineup or any other notes on free agency?
No, like you said, you talked about how they have no pending free agents, which is weird. You just don't see something like that. Listen, with a lot of these guys, like you mentioned, Kevon Looney. He's one of those guys that for them that just was hurt this year, but I fully expect him coming in next year. He's gonna be one of their top big men off the bench next season. Obviously, he has to get healthy. Uh, but yeah, there's the fact that they have no free agents. I mean, I think they secretly wanted that, so they released Bender early, just so they can technically say they don't have any free agents. Who knows? But yeah, that it sucks with Bender that he hasn't been able to get his career on track. But yeah, like I said, really no actual free agents to recap. So
Yeah, and I mean one of the big, and we'll go next, well, into off-season needs. I think they have a lot of flexibility in this lineup.
mm,
That's one of the things that I kind of see. So if they, I mean, I think one of their biggest needs is obviously finding another big man. They have a lot of
mm,
depth, with Looney. Pascal can play the 4. They have Chris. But none of those guys are really dominating or,
uh-huh,
I mean, I don't think they're guys that should be in your starting lineup. I think they're great depth pieces, but I don't
mm,
necessarily believe that Marquise Chris or Looney should be in your starting lineup at this point, especially if you want to contend for a championship. So I could see him picking up a veteran big man. I think that's one of their big off-season needs. It's just adding a better presence. But there is a lot of flexibility. I think in the draft they can go out and get the best player available. Just because they could swap things around a little bit. If they wanted to play Draymond technically at the 5, they could do that. It's a little smaller of a lineup, but your Houston Rockets are doing that. So it's not that I love that, but they could move Draymond to the 5, maybe Wiggins to the 4, or if they have a bigger wing player, move him to the 4. Klay Thompson's a little bigger, so you could play him at the 3. There's a lot of flexibility there. So this offseason will be super interesting, and I'm interested to see who they take in the draft.
Oh yeah, totally. Like I think not. This isn't so much a need, but they just need to make sure that I wouldn't say even their big man depth. Like they have enough depth now, I think. And then I mean, I could see them going best player available, but I think they're gonna end up targeting a big man in the draft. It's not just staying. I mean, that's not really a need per se, but just staying healthy. Like if they can, like if they make no moves and they just bring who they have on the roster right now into next season, they'll be fine. At this point, we're basically talking about, okay, how can they enhance their chances of winning a title, which they have a good chance of already winning next season.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a hard time calling any of this a need per se, because they don't really need anything. If you really think about it, it's more of kind of like a dream wish list or something, or however you would call it.
Yeah, and you and I have debated this before, but is it the restart of the dynasty? And we haven't even really talked about the fact, we've brought it up kind of in passing, but I mean, Andrew Wiggins is there now, and this is the first time in his career he really hasn't been relied upon as the number one. I mean, you could say with Karl Anthony Towns, he wasn't the number one option, but when Wiggins was the number one overall pick, I mean, he was expected to be a superstar, legendary kind of player. I mean, I remember all the hype when he was coming out.
Yeah.
So this is the first time. I think he's in a much better situation because I just don't think he has that dominating presence. I think if he's your third scoring option, like he is in Golden State, he could really thrive. So, I mean, that's dangerous. So you're adding Wiggins, who I think is only 25 right now, I want to say. So you have a young Andrew Wiggins still. They're going to add a top 3 pick. Depending on who that is, that could completely restart their franchise. And even if Curry and Thompson start to regress as they get older, which I've mentioned it before, I think Steph Curry has the kind of game, kind of like Ray Allen. I mean, Ray Allen wasn't a superstar late in his career, but that guy could still shoot threes. I mean, and that's what I think I could see Curry not being a superstar anymore, but being a really productive three-point specialist at the worst. So it seems like to me the whole dynasty might restart again. I mean, and Curry's only 31 right now, so he's not that old. LeBron's like 100 years old, and he's still all right. So one of my biggest targets for him, I said James Wiseman probably makes the most sense in the draft. Just because, I mean, if you look at their starting lineup with James Wiseman, I mean, you're talking Curry, Thompson, Wiggins, Draymond, James Wiseman, and then all those guys that performed well last season just moved to the bench. Then you have Chris, Looney, Pascal, Mulder, Poole, Bowman, Lee, all these young guys that played well. That's all their depth next season. So I think he makes the most sense. Like I mentioned, I could see them, if they get the number 1 overall pick, and I really like Wiseman. I think he's going to be a really nice big man in the NBA. So I wouldn't be surprised, though, if they went best player. I've seen a few mock drafts where they take LaMelo Ball. I don't know if I see him fitting in very well there.
I think that's a bad fit.
I just can't. I mean, I guess you slide Curry. I don't know. I feel like Curry. I don't know. I guess I don't know.
You slide. I mean, obviously you would. You're gonna play Curry at the. You're gonna play LaMelo at the 2. Like.
Yeah.
You're gonna play Curry at the 2.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, obviously you can move Klay out. Klay can shift out. Klay can shift out to the 3 very easily.
Yeah.
But you're gonna have to play. You have to play either Curry or LaMelo Ball at the 2. I don't know about that one.
Yeah, I don't like that either. So, I mean, there's teams. I mean, James Harden and Russell Westbrook do it. I don't love that combination. I guess I'd probably give it to LaMelo because he's more of a playmaker, I guess I'd say. Not that Curry's not. It sounds like I'm saying Steph Curry's not a playmaker, but Curry definitely has a better shot than Ball at this point.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, it's just yeah, like you said, Wiseman I think would be the smart pick. I mean, we don't know exactly where they're gonna pick. We don't know if he's gonna be available. I think the interesting thing with this draft, I'm sure we're gonna mention it on several of these pods, but anybody can go number one at this point. Like we don't know who, if the Warriors get number one, we don't know who they're gonna take. Uh, for me, I kind of like Obi Toppin. He would be my target for the Warriors. I mean, you look at the Warriors. They like to covet guys that are very athletic with some
Hmm.
scoring ability. I think Obi Toppin fits right in there. You can slide him. You can slide him. Wherever wherever they need to in that lineup at the 3 or the 4, wherever they decide to play Draymond. And I'm sure we're going to be talking about this when we have our pod on him, but I look at Obi Toppin and I see a little shades of Amari Stoudemire in him. Obviously, I think Obi Toppin has a much better shot, obviously, but I just think their abilities both on both ends. I just think if the Warriors next season went in there with a prime Amari Stoudemire, like that's game over. Like they're gonna win the championship guaranteed. And I
Yep.
just think cause that's and I just think Obi Toppin is that type of player for them that they tend to target in the draft. As far as free agency goes, and I mentioned this to you before we started. They have a very decent sized mid level exception to use if they choose to use it. I think there's a decent chance they don't, and they just fill their hypothetical need of a big man in the draft. But Serge Ibaka would be a great fit for them. You put him in at the 5. He's an automatic starter. You don't really need him. You don't really need him for him to do much on offensive end except hit an occasional three, which he's been proven. He's been a very effective 3-point shooter as his career is starting to dwindle down. And he's still a solid rebounder and defender in the paint. I mean, he's not the force that he was even 5 to 10 years ago, but I think he'd be perfect for the Warriors. Slide uh, right in that center spot and grab some rebounds and hit an occasional three. Not that the Warriors need any more people that can shoot threes, but.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think Serge Ibaka would make is kind of. I think that's more like of a dream scenario for the Warriors. I think they'd be ecstatic to get a guy like Ibaka, obviously. But yeah, he's in my opinion is probably the best fit for them out there on the market.
Yeah, no, and I agree. He's still a very great defender. Interestingly enough, for the Raptors, he's been coming off the bench more for them this season, and he's actually averaged his career high points this year. I have his stats up right now. He's averaging 16 points this year, so having a really nice year, averaging 8.3 rebounds. Not as much of a shot blocker. Back in 2011 and 12, he averaged 3.7 blocks a game,
Oof.
which is incredible. And then he followed it up with another season where he averaged over 3. So not as much. He averaged under 1 block a game this year. So not as much of a shot blocker, but still a really strong defender. I think personally they'll definitely use that mid-level exception because when you have a organization like this, somebody's going to want to come there and win a championship.
Yeah.
And that's what always happens with these mid-level exceptions. You get a guy like Serge Ibaka. He's 30, so not at the end of his career, but he's on the latter half here. He hasn't won a championship, or he did win one championship, but if he's trying to chase another championship, I mean, this is your perfect opportunity for it.
Yeah.
So I definitely, is it Serge Ibaka? I love Serge Ibaka's fit with them, but there will be some sort of veteran player that wants to go there and win a championship because that's how the NBA works now. So somebody will sign a lower 1-year mid-level exception, and they will have another great piece on that roster because And this segues nicely into, and I'll let you talk more on this section, but what we see for them during the upcoming season. You mentioned previously they probably would have snuck in the playoffs with even Curry this year. So with a full lineup, everybody should be healthy. I mean, Klay Thompson, ACL injuries aren't as big of a deal anymore. Lots of players have come back from them. I'd be more concerned about Kevin Durant in Brooklyn and that injury than Klay Thompson coming off an ACL injury. So a new top 5 draft pick. Where do you see him finishing next year?
Yeah, like I said, obviously they have a top pick in the draft. Everybody's gonna be back, but I still question. They're gonna have a lot of new pieces there. They're gonna have to integrate. I mean, if anybody knows how to integrate new pieces quickly, it's Steve Kerr. He's mastermind at the head coaching position. But I still think, even with a guy like Kerr, it's gonna take a while for them to gel, at least at the start, compared to other teams in the West that have now been together for at least a season. So I still expect them. I think they're a top 3 seed. I don't think they're gonna be the number 1 seed next year, or even the number 2. You got several other teams that, the Lakers and Clippers are gonna be right there with them next season. The Warriors, when the Warriors have made their runs in the recent past, they didn't really have a top level team to give them a real threat when they went on their runs in the West. I think this year and next year you'll have the Clippers and the Lakers to contend with, as well as the Houston Rockets, which you have generously mentioned a couple times already. But I could definitely, they're top 3 seed for sure. They're gonna be right in the hunt. They're gonna be in the hunt for a championship next season. With everybody back, even if it takes them a while to gel, they'll be ready in plenty of time for the postseason. Very quickly, one thing I wanted to mention. I don't know. I forgot where I saw this, and it might not have come from a seriously legitimate source, but I saw somewhere out there that there was a trade scenario for the Warriors getting Giannis by trading Wiggins and 2 future first round picks, which one of them would be the top pick in this draft. And then they would probably need the Warriors would probably need to add Draymond or Pascal as well, which I don't see the Bucks wanting. I wouldn't see the Bucks wanting Draymond because that salary he's gonna command, especially since they'd be taking on a Wiggins deal, which he's signed He signed I don't know if he signed the max, but it probably was at least close to the max. I'm not.
Yeah. He makes like $20 million a year.
Okay, so I think found that funny. Now, if the Warriors I think would do that in a heartbeat, giving away Wiggins, Pascal, and 2 firsts to get Giannis. To imagine pairing Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Giannis. Like, what is that? Like, that's you talk about like super teams. Like, that's like a don't play the season type team.
Yeah.
As you put Giannis on there. So I don't see that happening. It's fun to talk about, especially since there wasn't a lot to talk about with Golden State this year. But yeah, that's nothing else to really recap about next season. There'll be a top seed, and we'll have everybody will be complaining about how good they are and how stacked they are next season.
Yeah, and I mean, I mentioned this to you before. I think that Giannis will be traded if the Bucks. They're gonna have to sit down if they haven't already and say, are you in or are you out long term? And if Giannis isn't committed to the Bucks long term, I mean, I would get something out of them. And the Warriors are probably a very smart trade destination just because they have lots of superstars. They have a high draft pick. They can afford to give up capital in the future. Not that the future picks will be very high, but I think that'll be interesting to watch to see if Giannis is on the move. I don't expect him to be. We've talked about this before. And just touching up on one other thing, I agree. I have them as the 3rd seed in the West next year. And when you really start to break down the West next year, and I'm sure we'll do this in a later episode, kind of give our standings prediction for the next season.
Yeah.
But I mean, the West is very deep. And I'm looking at what 8 teams I expect to make the playoffs. And man, I don't know. There's a lot of young, talented team. You know, there's a
Houston.
team. Yeah, I mean, I'm not knocking Houston out, but then right now, when you have the Lakers, Clippers, Warriors, the Jazz, the Nuggets, the Thunder were a surprise team this year, the Rockets, the Mavericks, the Grizzlies, the Trailblazers, the Pelicans, the Spurs. I mean, there's 11 teams right there that I think are playoff bound. And even I'll throw in there the Phoenix Suns, who I think are interesting. They have a really young team. I like how they're coming together. I don't think they're quite ready for the playoffs, but I also said that about the Grizzlies, and here we are. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really the Western Conference is super, and even the Kings have been much improved this year. So it's really interesting. I think I throw everybody in the mix except the Timberwolves at this point. But
Ouch. Ouch.
so
No.
yeah, I mean, it's gonna
No
be really
Timberwolves
interesting.
love?
No,
No.
I like Karl Anthony Townsend to D'Angelo Russell, and we haven't mentioned that, but that's who the Warriors traded away to get Andrew Wiggins was D'Angelo Russell, and that was a really smart move in my opinion. That was a terrible fit from the beginning. I never understood how they were going to make Russell, Curry, and Thompson work, so they clearly had the intention of trading him down the road.
Yeah.
And by the way, Wiggins makes I just looked up Andrew Wiggins makes $30 million a
Ooh.
year right now. So
Oh boy. Oh, that's that's just it doesn't really. I mean, I'm sure the obviously the Warriors would make a deal like that in a heartbeat. But yeah, like I said, I don't see the Bucks trading Giannis. So I think and we'll probably talk about Giannis for about 25 minutes when we eventually get to the Bucks. Our Bucks one that we do in the off season, but yeah, I think they're gonna offer Giannis. Obviously, they're gonna offer Giannis the supermax. So we'll see what happens with him, and yeah, he's not. I don't see him going to the Warriors.
no. Yep, so I think that's all we have for the Warriors today. That was our little 2019-20 recap and a sneak preview into their upcoming offseason. So we appreciate you guys listening to the Fantasy Mafia podcast. If you don't already, make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. You can also like us on Facebook. And make sure you check out our website at thefantasymafia.com. So we appreciate you guys listening or watching, and we will see you next time.
Yep.